Welcome to Farm Your Daily, a Field Forward podcast. I'm your host, David Geiger. Today on Farm Your Daily for Thrive Thursday, we're going to go over the best ways folks can move their bodies and reduce stress with Dr. Lanzillotta. She's a doctor of physical therapy with Landus. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at Field Forward Pod. We would love to have you join our community, keeping folks informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Your Daily. And joining me on Farm Your Daily, we are going to celebrate a Thrive Thursday, talking about some of the health issues in the farm community. Thrive Thursday is a part of a Landus Opportunity Wellness Wednesday, but we're having a little bit later today, Thrive Thursday. With us is Dr. Lanzillotta. She's a doctor of physical therapy, and she works with Landus about some of these health issues that are going on, talking about what you think folks can do to help out. And I would like to start off there. We are in the midst of harvest. It is a stressful time for farmers, and physical therapy goes beyond just doing stretches. What would you say is a big aspect of physical therapy to you when you interact with folks and counsel them on how to better their health?
Yeah, I mean, physical abilities impact our ability to do everything throughout the day. And so a lot of the work that I do is just observing people's functional mobility and seeing how we can make it so that they do it in a way that is going to last year after year after year after year. Um, a lot of that looks like just loving awareness to how the body's working and how we can take subtle changes and implement them into how we do life. And yeah, ultimately, it's to have the body work as well as it can for as long as it can. And sometimes it's as simple as, you want to be able to stand up off the toilet for the rest of your life. So every time you stand up off the toilet, sit back down and do it again.
Right.
Or it could look you want
I'm
to be
just
able to
imagining
stand
people
up.
doing exercises in the bathroom now.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't have to look like I'm dedicating 2 hours of my day to changing my physical abilities. It can really look like I'm just taking an extra seat to stand up one more time, so that way I've done a few more squats today. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what I'm getting here is I like that term you used, making your body able to work well as long as it can, essentially. Um, can you give an example of a small minor change that you mentioned that could be used on something like a farm scenario and climbing in and out of the tractors or the combines or dealing with some machineries? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so a lot of people have the first instinct as what to do when they're thinking, "How should I stretch?" is I need to touch my toes. I need to stretch my hamstrings. And oftentimes, in the ways that we're just typically sitting, it's we're always in flexion, which means we're always kind of leaning forward. We're always kind of reaching towards our toes. And we are often not in extension. So that's leaning back, pushing our hips forward. And so over time, disc herniations can occur within the spine, which can present as low back pain. It can present as like a pain in your butt that just won't go away, or radiating pain down the legs. And the way that the disc goes back into place is by extending backwards and really pushing the hips forward. So, my best tip for anyone who is in a job where they're sitting often, or just in a job where they're moving mainly in the front direction, forward direction, um, is to stand up, put your hands on your low back, push your hips forward, and just extend backwards. This is going to give a little reset to your spine to allow you to reduce the risk of symptoms from disc herniations, because about 80% of the population has disc herniations, but only 30% of that 80% shows symptoms, which means that the disc is actually pushing on to nerves. So we're all at high risk of having symptoms if we are not having them already. And this can reduce the risk of symptoms and also reduce the risk of protrusion in general.
That
So,
is super interesting to me because it is exactly as you said. That's how I imagine when you're stretching, you kind of bend forward. That's how you stretch. And I was thinking about why I think that. And I think it's because the spine kind of naturally has that curvature forwards, right? You don't really expect to be bending backward for any reason, but your spine can go that direction. It's just not in my head that it did so. So, how do you, I guess, use that level of backward mobility um, in that conversation to counteract? You said put essentially your maybe your fists behind your back and kind of move forward, move your hips forward. Um, are there ways to do that poorly that you I got to stretch backward too that you don't recommend?
um, it doesn't have to look like an extreme gymnastics move. Like it doesn't have to look like a full bridge where you're on your hands and your feet and you're
Yeah,
like,
that's what I've thought first. Yeah,
it
I'm just
does
like
not have to
all the way
be
back like that.
the most intense yoga position. It really can look like, just putting your hands on your low back or even putting your back on a counter and just really leaning back like a solid 10 degrees, maybe a little bit more if you have that range, but it shouldn't be painful in any way. And a really safe way to do it is I'm a huge advocate for tummy time or just laying on your
Mm,
belly because
okay.
naturally that is going to put your body into a little bit of a extended position. And if you go up onto your elbows, that puts it even more into an extended position. And then if you're even more flexible than that, and you can push up onto your hands so that you're like your belly's kind of on the bed or on the ground, and you're like really pushing into your hands. That's going to be the ultimate safest range oriented position that
Right.
you can really get into uh, extension with. And in laying down on a bed doing that, you're working with gravity, pushing straight down on your back instead of doing it more in a standing position, which is obviously if you're on a farm or if you're at work, maybe you're not wanting to get into the dirt or like onto the ground to really get that extension. So you really can just put your hands behind your back and lean back,
Right. Right.
even just a little bit. It doesn't have to be extreme.
Right. And I think that's interesting because when you say it like that, I go, "Oh, well, I do that relatively frequently where I'll just put my elbows up or I'll kind of just stretch my back as I'm like laying on my stomach or sometimes I'll be getting up and I'll push up and I'll just kind of pause there and just move a little bit." And I think it's important to recognize that because I was not being intentional about it, but now I can. Now I know that this is actually a good movement that should be used a little bit more to make your back, hips, butt, everything just potentially work a little bit better down the line.
Definitely. Yeah. The it's a saying that your body works as long as your spine works, and keeping an intentionality in being able to really move your back in all directions, rotation, extension, and flexion, like just bringing some awareness to that is going to keep it moving. And even if it's like a very sedentary day, taking some time to really like wiggle your hips and
Mm-hmm.
like bring your head into good posture because your spine really goes from the bottom of like your back to the top of your head. And so thinking of it as like this whole unit that really is where all of your nerves come from. Uh, it's a really important part of the body
Yeah.
to just bring awareness to.
Okay, and this might be a bit of a tangent, and I definitely don't want to move into areas that you're not as familiar with or not an expert in, like chiropractic. But I will. Something I think about is when I do those things, my back cracks, and I have heard it all sorts of ways of, oh, you're not supposed to crack your back. Oh, you are supposed to crack your back, and I honestly don't know because I don't know many experts to ask that. If your back is cracking when you do those types of movements, is that a sign for you to pause and stop? Or is that just a natural part of the body releasing as you move around?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I am under the the school of thought that cracking is not a bad thing unless it's painful. So if your back is like grinding and cracking and then it hurts for a whole day after, I would be concerned about that, and I would be looking to go to my doctor and potentially get imaging around what's going on. But the body naturally develops these little like air pockets basically that do pop and crack as we are just intentionally moving our bodies or unintentionally moving our bodies. Um, and we have the ability to kind of reacquaint with what straight is. And if you're out of that alignment for a long time, getting back into it may cause a crack the same way getting out of it might cause a crack.
Right.
And so it's really based on how do you feel after that happens.
Yeah.
Um,
I say that because I remember as a kid being told by many adults saying, "Don't crack your knuckles; you'll develop arthritis if you crack your knuckles." And so I kind of just attributed that to just all areas of my body. But at the same time, sometimes like doing those, just it feels both natural and it feels good. But both of those things sometimes does not necessarily make it the best way or the healthiest thing to do. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would also follow that up with I wouldn't be crack seeking
Okay.
in in these movements. If it happens as a result of doing this, that's so okay and so safe as long as there's no pain, but it's not an indication of like I did that.
Right, right.
Like
Sometimes
and
it's
now
the
it was effective.
it's like a conclusion, right? It's like I have reached the point in which it is good, and it's like I don't know, it's like the end credits, right? It's like you're done now, and
Yeah.
I think that's interesting to bring up. Um, Dr. Uma, I wanted to move over to another area of physical therapy that I personally wouldn't have thought of as a physical therapy area of expertise, but that is stress. And can you explain why stress is a part of what you do and what you specialize in?
Yeah, so stress, chronic stress really does show up in the body, um, in a way of potentially having just a lack of motivation, as well as like burnout symptoms that can look like a lot of different thing for people. It could look like irritability. It could look like not wanting to do the thing that you always do, just not feeling engaged in the work that you're doing. And this is something that comes up in the physical therapy realm often because when people are injured, and then having to still perform at the same level that they were prior to injury, it's easy for people to get to a level of stress where they're just like, "I'm just done. I just cannot do it anymore." And, that's when I start entering a conversation with them around just like energy and time management because it's like, okay, at what point in the day are you feeling up to doing these things? And like, how can we optimize that time? And then also, like, if you're not feeling able to do these things, what can we do so you still feel able to do things in life that are really important in just fostering joy and fostering the feeling of like, I can do the things I need to do to feel complete with my day. So it might look like taking 10 minutes in the day to just walk or just try and get a few more steps or even go up and down a flight of stairs if you have the ability to and like just move your body without it being like I have to do this work or like I have to do these reps and sets, but just like I have to move my body because I'm stuck in a headspace that's not really letting me um optimize my time. Um and
That can
so
release a lot of personal body chemicals as well that can help motivate you a little bit more if you can just get yourself to take that first step.
exactly, yeah, and I really appreciate step counts, like, the phone naturally counts your steps, we always seem to have those on us, and so once you become a little bit aware of like, "Oh, wow, I only took 600 steps today," that's a really low amount, and the body, one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite anatomy professors, Professor Derby, I worked under her for many years. She would always say, what makes the body wonderful makes the body terrible. And so the best reasoning for that I have is that the body adapts to whatever stress you put it under. And so if you're trying to be able to lift 500 pounds, eventually your body will be able to do that in the right capacity if you are building up to that naturally. But in the same idea, if you are only making your body lift up 5 pounds every day, and that's like your max amount, you're never going to attain that goal, and your body's actually going to not even be able to do what you would imagine your body to be able to do after a certain amount of time of only lifting that small amount. Or if you're in step count wise, being like, I can take 200 steps a day. Well, to imagine doing 10,000 steps is pretty outrageous, but that's the recommended daily amount of steps, which is about 4.5 miles, which is a ton.
That's a
But
lot.
if
Yeah.
you start to build up to that, your body is able to do it. It's just a matter of, am I putting my body under the right amount of stress to get to that place? Because stress is healthy. Like putting your body over a little bit of a progressive overload is how you get to the next phase and attaining your goals with like physical enhancements. But like progressive deloading is going to get you to a place of like, I can't even do what I once did.
Right.
And so that goes off that statement of like, what makes us wonderful can make us terrible. And that like, if you don't use it, you lose it. And if you use it, you gain it. You can do those things. Like,
I'm glad you brought that up, though. It's something that I totally forgot of until you mentioned it. I think it's what is it? U stress, like EU stress as the good stress, and then I can't remember the opposite, the bad stress. But I like the way you phrase that. Of stress is a good thing in order to learn, grow, become stronger. Sometimes you do need to stress out your body, your mind, etc. It is the prolonged and overburdening levels of stress that can be very negative over long periods of time. And when you deal with that, I want to talk about mitigation then, because it is harvest, and that means farmers don't really have a choice. They have to work long hours in order to get their crop, and they only have a certain amount of time to get their crop, and they got to work as hard as they can, as long as they can. And that means they're going to have to push their body to limits that are probably unhealthy in some ways. How do you mitigate some of those things when you know you have to go through these short-term time frames of putting yourself under undue amounts of stress?
yeah. Um, One of my favorite ways to mitigate stress when that stress is undeniably going to happen is bringing awareness to the breath. Um, when I was a student in physical therapy, I did a research study about blood pressure and breath. And a proven way to really lower your blood pressure, which is like often associated with stress, is to extend your exhale. And so if you're like counting a breath, it would be like a 4 second inhale to like an 8 second exhale. And I would always tell my patients like, try to get to that last drop of what can get out and really sigh it out, because it's going to allow you to take a really fresh, deep breath in and really just charge up the body with a breath in. But taking that long exhale really increases parasympathetics, which is like the rest and digest in the body. And if you add a hum to it, a little
Until you
keep
use every
going.
last dreg.
Yeah, try and get the last drop even until you get to that last cough. Um, that's going to vibrate your vagus nerve, which is the wandering nerve of the body, and it really attaches to every organ system that is imperative to existence, and it tells it, hey, calm down, rest, digest. Like it's okay to get out of that sympathetic fight or flight stress that we're in right now. It's okay. And kind of developing that vagal tone, as it's sometimes called, or that rest and digest strength, in that your body can go to that state of resting, even if it's under high stress. I feel like that is a really great way to kind of just come back to center, come back to your body, and like work with the tool that you always have on you, which is your lungs. Um, and yeah, just take a deep exhale, sigh it out. It's
I
it's
I
a
feel very
simple thing.
validated. Yeah, I feel validated because that's something I do when I'm stressed out. I'll just take a deep breath and go, or like I will just breathe out. And it's funny because sometimes you have to be careful because people will think that you're upset at them when you're around them and you're just taking a deep breath to calm yourself and to de-stress yourself, and people will be like, oh, he's huffing or he's mad. So I think that's another side to just tell people who are listening that are not necessarily under as much stress. Sometimes that's the stress mitigation thing. No one's mad. They just want to
Yeah.
de-stress.
Yeah. Yeah, I was working in a rehab facility where I was teaching all of my patients to do this, to, like, help with their blood pressure, help with their anxiety, and I had to let the staff know in the facility that this was happening because they were like, "We hear these people, like, making these wild noises, like, ah."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're okay, they're coping, they're working with their body.
I'm trying
So
to think of another physical stress reliever that I will do, and that is to just if I get really stressed out, there's only one thing to do, and that is to press the restart button. I take a nap because I just need to reset. Like I'm like I'm too stressed. I can't think of anything I need to do, and I can't do it. Like right now, I'm just not capable of doing things properly. I'm just gonna lie down, close my eyes, and then I it's crazy how like different I will feel, even if it's just like a 10-minute, like eyes closed power nap. Is that something you recommend as well?
I am I'm a big fan of a nap. I think it can become a point of avoidance that, like, you're always going to take a nap every time you're feeling stressed that might not
Right. Yeah. That is
ultimately
me. That is a good criticism of me. Yes.
it might not ultimately serve as deeply as it helps, but, I'm a fan of taking naps. I'm also a fan of just taking time with your eyes closed and just trying to clear your mind and just breathe and, like, not focus on any of the stress, and sometimes that might look like needing to write a list before you're doing that, of like, "Okay, here are all the things I'm gonna get back to once I'm out of this moment of pause with myself," but I think taking time to pause and not worry about all the things you have to worry about is ultimately like a refreshing reminder of grounding, of like, I have full autonomy to take care of myself. And sometimes that just looks like being in a quiet space with my eyes shut for 5, 20 minutes.
It's funny because I don't want to delve too far outside of your area of expertise, but there is a level of mind to body and body to mind connection in terms of physical therapy and as a doctor of physical therapy. But something I do personally as a way to stop or slow down stress or remove stress is I will just imagine myself whenever all the deadlines are done, right? So say you're a farmer, right? December 1st, most farmers in Iowa are probably going to be done. Maybe there's a couple fields still standing, but most farmers will be well done by December 1st. And so I would, in that situation, imagine myself, okay, on December 1st, for good or for ill, everything will be done. Like all the stress that I'm feeling right now will be gone. Everything will be removed. And having that level of reflection, mind to body, body to mind, and oftentimes with my eyes closed, just like deep breathing, like these are all aspects that I do to try to calm myself. So there are many different ways to do. I don't know if that's a good or healthy way to do it, but that's just a personal example, but I'm sure there's many more that many people will have made.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely, and knowing that you have a timeline on the stress, I think is a really great way to cope with the fact that you're in it, of like, "Okay, I'm in a grind time, I'm in a push time right now, and this is not forever." And so that is like a great way to stay like goal oriented of like, I'm going to get to this goal and this finish line. And I also have a wariness of feeling like, okay, on December 1st, I can all of a sudden do nothing. I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah.
you just built up your strength and your endurance to this level. It's like, how can we decompress out of that without just going to like such a harsh opposite of you just walked up these stairs and now instead of like walking back down the stairs, you just jump down.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. 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 You just like start flopping and falling down the stairs, you know? It's like, oh,
yeah.
this is easier, right? No. It might be
No,
faster.
no, no.
It's not going to be better, though.
Yeah, trying to come up with those, like, personal joys even that utilize similar levels of, like, mind exercise, body exercise that aren't stressful, but that you're able to kind of take that the benefits of stress from that time and implement them into your joy time and into your, like, rest time. I feel like that's a nice thing to think about when you're no longer under that intense pressure of like, "Well, I built up to this. How can I still use this in a productive way that isn't just for work? Like, how can I enjoy my life and have, like, a functional body that still does things for me?"
With us this Thrive Thursday, we have Doctor of Physical Therapy, Uma Lanzillotta, and she is a Doctor of Physical Therapy with Landus. Thank you so much for joining us, talking about mindfulness, stretching, and all the ways you can keep yourself healthy for as long as you can keep yourself healthy today on Farm Here Daily.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This is Farm Here Daily, a field forward podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Again, in order to continue to produce this type of local content, we would love to have you join our community. So please follow the podcast as well as our social media channels at Field Forward Pod. You can also find me on social media at Geiger Reports. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody.